Welcome to Weekend Waypoints, our daily video show for SEC Extra at d1baseball.com. Every Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning, we will get you ready for a busy day of SEC baseball. I'm your host, Joe Healy. I'll be the primary host on these shows on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. However, from time to time throughout the season, I will rope in my partner, Mark Etheridge, from our Highway to Hoover podcast, maybe some other cast of characters from the D1 baseball family, Kendall, Aaron, David Seifert, Mike Rooney. Who knows? I'm kind of hoping to rope in a number of people throughout the season to just give some different perspectives on SEC baseball. But for better or worse, it's going to be my face you will see for most of these episodes. Frankly, it's going to be a pretty loose show. I've got segments mapped out. You'll see it maybe periodically here on my handy dandy whiteboard. You can see that's Friday's waypoints there. But beyond that, I think it's mostly just going to be me talking to you about SEC baseball 3 times per weekend. Does that sound like a plan? I hope so. Each time the show goes live, you can watch it on, and I'm going to look at my script here to make sure that I list all of these correctly. D1 Baseball's Facebook page or YouTube channel, plus the Twitter accounts or X accounts, if you will, for both D1 Baseball and D1 Baseball's SEC Extra. Let's jump right into it. We're going to try to keep these episodes relatively short. Let's call it 15 minutes. So I'm going to jump right into it. We're going to start with a news roundup, some things that leading up to the weekend I think are notable. You will see it here on my handy whiteboard. News roundup. The first item there, Holton, Becker, Maracna. That's some rotation-related pieces of news there. You may have seen Carter Holton at Vanderbilt, not in the rotation this weekend for the Commodores. Per Tim Corbin, passed on by Arya Gerson, the Tennessean beat writer there. The anticipation is that Holton will be in the rotation at some point. He is healthy. However, he is coming off of the injury that slowed him late last season. Still on the mend from that, still on the way back. He's just not stretched out, not quite ready to start, but the idea is that he will be at some point in the future. Matthew Becker, South Carolina, out this weekend. He was one of the guys, along with guys like Eli Jones and Roman Kimball, who were looked at as guys that are going to have to be weekend guys for the Gamecocks. And Becker's probably the most experienced, the guy they were maybe most confident in at least being a solid weekend guy for them. And he's out for now. Roman Kimball also, apparently, this was came out of a South Carolina media availability earlier this week. Roman Kimball also has been a little bit nicked up, but he is going to start on Sunday for the Gamecocks. And then Christian Maracna may not be a name you know, transfer at Georgia from George Mason. There were a lot of candidates to start for Georgia. Charlie Goldstein, Leighton Finley, those 2 guys will start for Georgia. But then, Colton Smith, Chandler Marsh, there are a handful of other names in that mix. Maracna wasn't really one that initially was kind of at the front of mind, but here he is. I was a closer at George Mason, experienced guy. Early season weekend rotations, you don't want to read too much into them. But it is interesting that he was a guy that Wes Johnson, who clearly knows pitching, that he's the guy he turned to in that situation. So be interesting to see what the production is there. Final thing here, Arkansas moved their game today, Friday, up to 2 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. local time, 3 p.m. Eastern. And also, while we're here, you'll notice the ticker at the bottom of the screen there is scrolling today's schedule. My apologies for it being abbreviated and kind of squished together. Only have so many characters on that ticker, so got to do what you got to do. But anyway, Arkansas moved up an hour, 2 p.m. Central. And I bring this up not just if you're an Arkansas fan, but generally, we've got some weather moving across the Mid-South today. So just make sure if you're going to a game in the Mid-South, you take a look and make sure, keep tuned to the team social media pages, things like that, to make sure that the game hasn't been moved already and that you're going to be off schedule there. So just make sure to pay attention to that. Let's move on to some of the action here. We're going to do a series of the weekend. This will be the format for all these Friday shows. A series of the weekend, a pitching matchup of the day, which, of course, Friday nights are the big-time pitching matchups in the conference, especially once we actually get into conference play. And then we'll wrap up by kind of a what to watch for, where I'll tell you a little bit about where the D1 baseball team is going to be to make sure you are following all of us on social to keep up with what's going on in the SEC, and then maybe some content pieces to look out for throughout the weekend, and then once the weekend wraps up. So series of the weekend, second thing there, Air Force at Mississippi State. Now, I know what you're thinking. Tennessee is playing in the tournament in Arlington. Isn't that kind of the game of the weekend? Yes, we will talk about Tennessee in a minute. I promise we've not forgotten about that, but I'm going to play by a strict set of rules that says that's not a series. So we're going to talk about an actual series. And then you may wonder, why are we talking Mississippi State and Air Force? Well, I would go back and say Air Force is a team that was in regionals 2 years ago. That was a team Paul Skeens was on. And then last year, they were 1 win away in the Mountain West tournament from being in a regional 2 years in a row. Also, they're talented. And when you look at what Mississippi State struggled most at last season, that's obviously pitching. Air Force presents a particular challenge for the Bulldogs. So I think it's an interesting series from the standpoint of if Mississippi State is going to be better on the mound, this is the type of weekend where A, they're going to have to prove it, and B, if they are able to come out of it looking pretty good on the mound, it might be an early sign, not a definitive sign, but at least an early sign that things might be a little bit better in that regard. I'm going to present my screen here because I will show you, in case you are dubious of what I'm telling you about Air Force's offense, you will see their offensive numbers here. So the top guy here, Sam Kulasingam, preseason All-American for us at D1 Baseball. You see the 426 average and 1192 OPS, 28 doubles, 50 walks compared to 24 strikeouts. I mean, just incredible numbers. Jay Thomason is back. He's their third baseman, 344 average, 21 doubles, 21 home runs. Again, offensive environments at Air Force and throughout the Mountain West, but still those numbers are legit. Chase Spencer is back, potential leadoff hitter for Air Force. Hit 292 last season, but more importantly, this number over here, 18 stolen bases in 20 attempts. So that was another thing for Mississippi State last year. Catchers not being able to necessarily control the running game. So that's going to be something to watch for in this series. I'm pretty confident Mississippi State is going to do some things offensively. You flip over to this tab for pitching for Air Force, you'll notice a 7.42 team ERA last season. Again, offensive environments in the Mountain West, but still, I think this is going to be an opportunity for State to put up some runs. The key is going to be, can you slow down this Air Force offense? To a degree you need to, even if you're putting up big run totals. I would compare it a little bit to last year's VMI series, which was a series that was probably even less regarded than the series against Air Force, but VMI really kind of muddied up that series. They won the middle game of the series, ran all over Mississippi State. They were kind of feisty the entire weekend. And, whether or not Mississippi State, I still expect them to obviously win the series. They're just a lot more talented than Air Force. There's no way around that. But can they keep this from being another series where they get stuck in the mud and they just have to be in dogfights and have to really fight through it? And maybe that's what they need to do, but you would like to see them have a little bit of an easier time against opponent they're just going to be more talented than, but it's complicated with Air Force because that team is good. That team plays hard. They can really hit. So if those games are close, that pressure starts to ratchet up a little bit. Mississippi State starts to think, oh, here we go again. That would be really easy for them to fall into. And it's going to be important that they keep their wits about them there. Moving on to the top pitching matchup, you'll see here, Tennessee's AJ Russell against Texas Tech's Kyle Robinson. I thought it was notable that Tennessee went with AJ Russell on Friday as opposed to Drew Beam. They have Drew Beam back. I think the expectation was that Drew Beam was going to be the Friday guy, and he would have been a reasonable Friday guy. I think this probably has less to do with Drew Beam, but it would have been really easy for Tennessee to put Beam out there on Fridays, if for no other reason than it's like, hey, this is a guy who's been in the rotation 2 years. He's won a lot of games for us. He's got a steady heartbeat. We know what we're going to get from him. Let's just stick him on Fridays and have that be the end of it. But with AJ Russell being that guy, I do have to wonder if maybe we're looking at a big breakout star in the SEC with AJ Russell. And certainly the stuff is there, and he pitched really well last year, a freshman program record 0.89 ERA, relatively small sample, 30 and a third innings, but he dominated those 30 and a third innings. His role got bigger as the season went on. Obviously, this is a big jump in role for him. We'll have to see how he handles it. But again, I do wonder if Tennessee's trying to send us little messages that, hey, you need to pay attention to this guy. Like, he's a game changer for us. And, could that 1-2 of Russell and Beam be up there with the Arkansas rotation or the Vanderbilt rotation? We'll have to see. But man, if Russell's the real deal, you can certainly see that happening. A TBA for Tennessee on Sunday, we'll have to see. where they go there. Could be AJ Causey, could be Xander Sechrist, could be Nate Snead was a name I had heard. I kind of assumed he'd be just a strict bullpen guy for Tennessee, but Mike Wilson of the Knoxville News was tweeted the other day that Snead was, or wrote the other day that Snead was one of the guys in the rotation mix, which surprised me a little, but certainly it's a big arm. So that's at least intriguing. So we'll have to see what happens there. Robinson on the Texas Tech side, and this is part of the Shriners Children's College Baseball Classic or Showdown. I forget the exact wording there, but it's the marquee game of not just Friday, but maybe of the entire weekend in the SEC, with two ranked teams, Tennessee taking on Texas Tech, 9 versus 21 there. Kyle Robinson, Texas Tech starter. The numbers last year don't necessarily tell the whole story. It's a 5.36 ERA. He was in a swing role. I think he only started something like 5 games, but his potential is such that he got invited to Team USA over the summer, and the stuff is really good. It's a fastball into the mid 90s. It's 2 swing and miss secondary offerings. He'll get you with a changeup and a slider. And, as a right-hander, a slider or a changeup is not necessarily a common out pitch for a right-hander, but he's got one. And so that is a real weapon. So that should be a real blockbuster. I know there was some hope that it would be Beam versus Robinson. I think Russell versus Robinson is a pretty good consolation prize there. Frankly, if a consolation prize at all, it could be a pretty blockbuster matchup there. So looking forward to that. Tennessee has Oklahoma in the second game of that weekend. Just quickly there, Oklahoma is an offense that likes to push the envelope offensively. They're going to try to run. They're going to try to make Tennessee play defense. And that's interesting from the standpoint of Tennessee's got some guys on the infield that you have questions about defensively. Blake Burke at first base was not a good defender last year. Billy Amick, the new third baseman transfer from Clemson, to my eyes, when I saw him in the fall, I liked what I saw there, but there are questions about him defensively. If Oklahoma bunts at him, how is he going to handle that? And then frankly, if the throws aren't great, how is Blake Burke going to handle those throws when they have to hurry, right? So that is an interesting little subplot for that Saturday game. And we'll see Beam versus Brennan Girton starting for Oklahoma. Interestingly enough, Girton formerly pitched for Texas Tech, now with Oklahoma. Sunday, Tennessee takes on Baylor, and Baylor's just, that program's down right now. I mean, that's a name that has some cachet in college baseball, so you might think like, oh, that's a good game too, and who knows, maybe it will be, but on paper, that's a game that Tennessee should just out-talent Baylor and take care of business there. So Tennessee got off to a 1-2 start last year in Arizona. You may remember they're going to try to avoid that this weekend. Going to be tough, especially with their first 2 games against quality competition in Texas Tech and Oklahoma, 2 teams that, oh, by the way, are really, really familiar with Globe Life Field in Arlington. Not only do they play the Big 12 tournament there, but though Oklahoma in particular is a team that's played a lot of games just in their seasons in that ballpark. That ballpark hosts a lot of college baseball. Oklahoma in particular has played there a lot. So that's an interesting little wrinkle there. Will be fun to watch Tennessee this weekend. Finally, that's a good segue to my what to watch for, just to kind of let you know where D1 baseball staffers will be and what we'll have coming for you. Kendall will be in Arlington at that tournament, so he'll be there to see Tennessee and everyone else in Arlington. If you're watching this, you probably already follow him on social and are aware of what he's doing, but if not, make that happen. David Seifert, our prospect writer, will be at Florida on Sunday to see Jack Caglione pitch. That's obviously an intriguing deal. It'll be interesting to see what he looks like, what kind of adjustments maybe he's made to his delivery, his pitch mix, whatever it is, to make him a little more consistent. Mark from SEC Extra Highway to Hoover will be at Alabama tonight. He's going to be at Mississippi State tomorrow, and then he'll be at LSU on Monday. So you're getting 3 different programs there with Mark throughout the weekend, and he'll write about a little bit about all those and have some stuff for you next week as well. I will be at Kentucky's series against USC Upstate, and on paper, you might not think much of that. However, USC Upstate, the favorite in the Big South Conference, a very old team, a talented team, a team that has narrowly missed regionals something like 3 years in a row because they, until now, have played in the same conference as Campbell, who has kind of dominated the Big South. Campbell is gone, so USC Upstate really has an opportunity here to become the bully of the Big South Conference, and they're a good team. Kentucky's going to have to come to play. Kentucky, of course, coming off a super regional series, and I think they're a pretty good fit for that ballpark. Big ballpark. So I think, Kentucky's got an athletic defense, outfielders who can go and get it, infielders who can pick it. I think that's a good fit. And then if they can put balls in the gaps offensively and just take off and run, maybe steal some bases, I think there's an opportunity for that to just be a good setting fit for Kentucky, but they are going to have to play well to win that series because USC Upstate is a good team. So that will be interesting. I will have that for you at least on Friday and Saturday. Sunday, I will not be at the ballpark. So first 2 days of that series, Kentucky and USC Upstate, I will be there for. I'll write on those 2 games. I'm also working on a couple of features that will come either later in the week or later this season. Might just hold on to some stuff there, but certainly more of Kentucky stuff coming down the pike after that. That's going to do it for our first ever episode 1 of Weekend Waypoints with my very high-tech setup of a whiteboard and a stand behind me holding a little vague bullet point script I wrote out. So, look, only the best for you guys. We're going super, super high-tech, real futuristic stuff here on Weekend Waypoints at D1 Baseball. So thanks for watching this episode 1. I'll talk to you tomorrow morning. Idea is to go live about 10 a.m. I'll send out a notice, though, on social about when I plan to go live. But the idea, 10 a.m. Eastern, about when I anticipate going live to recap the first Friday of the SEC baseball season. And those words are really exciting to say out loud. And I hope you're excited to hear those words because it's here, folks. I'll talk to you Saturday.